Now, let's see.
Yeah.
For my itinerary, I have my family. I'm just going to assume that my family's flying in as well. They're going to be getting there at maybe 12, right in time for lunch. I do not have my family going straight into the parks on their first day, which is something I'd recommend to everybody. If you're flying in or driving in and you get to your hotel sort of later, I would recommend just like spending the day at the hotel or at downtown Disney, just so your family has sort of time to recoup from jet lag. Or, I mean, if you've been sitting in a car for 12 hours driving to the parks, you can just chill in the hotel or walk around downtown Disney. You'd be perfectly fine. And on the second day, I have my family eating breakfast at the hotel, like I mentioned before. And now I'm going to sort of break down my itinerary into like what attractions to do for each day. Of course, this is all based on what my family does. Your family could be completely different than mine and have different tastes in attractions, but the first thing when you get to the parks, the first thing I would recommend you guys to do is to get a fast pass for either Space Mountain or really any of your other favorite rides that are going to be really popular. The first fast pass my family usually gets is for Space Mountain because it's our favorite. Collectively, it's our favorite attraction in the whole park, and it usually has sort of like the longest lines out of all of them. And plus, it's not really a long walk to get the fast pass, unlike Splash Mountain, which you really don't want to ride Splash Mountain right in the morning because it can get cold at Disneyland in California in the morning, believe it or not. But yeah, I would recommend you guys getting a fast pass for probably Space Mountain, but it really depends on what you guys like. And then after you get your fast pass for Space Mountain, you want to book it to the Fantasyland rides. Your rides like Peter Pan, your rides like Pinocchio. Well, Peter Pan is really the only one that you really need to hurry to, since the lines are always the longest. What my family usually does is sort of like split off into groups of two, or maybe even like one group of three head to Peter Pan, and then let's say I go off and get their fast passes for Space Mountain, and then we eventually meet back up into Fantasyland to get on the attractions. But yeah, the second thing I would recommend to do is to sort of beeline it to Peter Pan's flight, because it's really the only time in the day, right in the morning, is the only time of the day that you're going to get to ride that ride with reasonably short wait lines. Let's see, and then by that time, your family... But by the time you've ridden Peter Pan's flight, it should be time for your fast pass for Space Mountain. So you go to Space Mountain, redeem your fast pass, ride Space Mountain, and I'm assuming by that time it should be afternoon. So that would be when you want to get lunch. I would recommend going to the Corn Dog Castle. I don't know if I've mentioned this before. My family, they're not really picky eaters. We'll eat just like basic things like burgers, hamburgers. Oh, that's the same thing. Burgers, chicken strips, corn dogs. Yeah, you can really go to any quick service restaurant you want, as long as it's like relatively close to the location you're at, and if you don't really want to walk far. But after lunch, I would say, or maybe even before lunch, it really depends on what time you finish riding all of the rides you want in the morning. I'm just going to say after lunch. After lunch, I recommend getting another fast pass for either Big Thunder, Haunted Mansion, Indiana Jones, or any other big, sort of biggie tickets that you didn't get to ride in the morning. And then you can ride any of the other attractions you want. Say Casey Jr. Circus, really whatever attractions you guys want. And then after you ride a couple attractions, it should be time for your second fast pass. So of course you go redeem your second fast pass for Big Thunder or whatever attraction you decided to get. And sort of late to early evening is the time I would recommend to go on some of the slower rides during Disneyland, because I guess sort of around lunch to evening is when the lines for the attractions really start to get long. So I'd recommend getting on some low wait time attractions, some slow attractions like the Disneyland Railroad, the Mark Twain, the Tiki Room, which I've yet to go on. But yeah, slow attractions at sort of the early evening of the day to just sort of calm your family down while you wait until your next attraction. And then after you're finished riding the slower attractions, oh, I forgot to mention Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. That's another good sort of slow attraction where you get to relax in air conditioning and listen to a narration, and then you get to see an awesome Abraham Lincoln animatronic. And then sort of in the evening, you can ride rides like Splash Mountain or really any of the other e-tickets you didn't get to hit during the morning or during the day. And then it's dinner time. You guys can go eat dinner. I believe I had my family eating dinner at one of the sit-down restaurants, but like I said, depending on your budget, you can just eat at counter service restaurants all throughout your days at the park. It really won't make a difference unless you really want to get, I guess, like good high quality expensive food at like the Blue Bayou or something like that. Then you can go to a sit down restaurant. And now there was one part I couldn't quite figure out because it really depends on the sort of family you are. I have my family watching Fantasmic on the first night that they're in the park. You can maybe cram in Fantasmic in the second day after you're done with California Adventure, or you can even cram Fantasmic in on the third day. But I have a bunch of other things planned for the third day of Disneyland. Now, day 2 is sort of a complicated day, at least for me. That's how I wrote it down. Day 2 would be Disney's California Adventure. The first thing I would have my family do is to beeline it to either Guardians of the Galaxy or Radiator Springs Racers right after Rope Drop. That's like right when you get to the park, right when the park first opened. You beeline it for those attractions, and you can get a Fast Pass for Guardians, the Incredicoaster, or Soarin', whichever you guys prefer, but the really big attractions that have almost always have long wait times is Guardians of the Galaxy and Radiator Springs Racers. And sort of Radiator Springs Racers almost has longer wait times than Guardians, I feel, so you might want to prioritize Radiator Springs Racers in the morning and then maybe get a Fast Pass for Guardians or go on Guardians right after your Radiator Springs Racers is finished. But after you get your Fast Pass for whatever attractions you want, you can go on attractions like The Little Mermaid, Toy Story, Monsters, Inc. I believe they added a Fast Pass for Toy Story Midway Mania a while back, but that's also included in one of the attractions that you can get a Fast Pass for. Man, planning the day for California Adventure was really hard for me because I'm sort of basing all this off of what my family does, and there's really not a lot of good attractions that my family would want to go on. Like, I wouldn't want to go on Monsters, Inc. Oh my gosh, excuse me. But attractions like The Little Mermaid, Toy Story, those are really the ones that you sort of can't skip out on. I mean, I love the Little Mermaid attraction. My whole family loves that attraction. We go on it every time we're in the park. And then going into the afternoon, you can get lunch at the... I recommend the Corn Dog Castle. I think it's still there. They might have gotten rid of it or moved it someplace else, but the Corn Dog Castle, guys, eat corn dogs every meal while you're at the parks. I'm not exaggerating. The corn dogs there are the best corn dogs I've ever eaten. And I think in the previous episode, Alex explained why they're so good. So you can probably click back to find that episode. But sort of after lunch, I have my family going to see the Frozen show in Hollywood. Is it Hollywoodland or Hollywood Pictures Backlot? I think it's Hollywoodland, right?
Hollywoodland, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now I have my family, like I said, going to see I almost said the Aladdin, the Frozen sort of musical show that they put on. Whatever. It's sort of a nice, relaxing thing to unwind yourself right after lunch. Again, in air conditioning. And then after you see the Frozen musical, again, you don't have to see the Frozen musical, but I would recommend it. Even though I've never seen it, I would just recommend it for the fact that you get to sit down and have air conditioning for maybe like an hour and a half. I don't know how long the show is, but after that, you might want to go on attractions like Grizzly River Run. I think they have a fast pass. I get really confused on how to say that. But that's sort of like almost the perfect time of the day where you want to get on that attraction, where it's kind of warm, but then you kind of want to cool down. I mean, you might not be a fan of getting wet. I'm not really a fan of getting wet, but when you're having fun getting wet on an attraction like Grizzly River Run, it's a really great time. And this is sort of where I'm really complicated on, because after this you can really just finish off whatever attractions you didn't get to ride or whatever attractions you want to ride. Or I also have a sort of option for my family to switch off and go to Disneyland, sort of hit the attractions that they didn't get to ride the first day, or maybe just even relax in Disneyland, because, I mean, California Adventure can be relaxing, but not as relaxing as Disneyland is, that's for sure. You can maybe take that time to see one of the parades, and maybe even if you want, you can head back to California Adventure to see World of Color, which is a really awesome show. I would really recommend you guys go see World of Color. And the third day, I have my family on the third and final day in the parks going to Disneyland. It's really just sort of whatever you missed on the first one day or maybe 2 days. Really the attractions that you missed on the first day. And sort of take that time to do some shopping. If you guys want to get like some clothes or some souvenirs, save all that for the last day, so you don't really have to lug around all of those bags on the first or even second day. You can just enjoy those 2 days. Now, this is sort of important. Not really, it might not be important to your family, but it's important for my family. You guys probably noticed I left out seeing the fireworks. That's because I recommend seeing the fireworks on the last day and have the fireworks be the last thing you do. See the latest showing of the fireworks there is, see the fireworks, and then once you see the fireworks, it's when you leave the park and go back to your hotel. I can't really explain it. It's really, I don't know, it's sort of magical to see the fireworks on your last day. You know it's the last thing you're gonna do, and I don't know if I might have mentioned this a couple episodes ago, but last time my family went, we saw the fireworks. My mom camped out for hours, sitting in the very, very front of the castle, and we got front row seats to see the fireworks, and it was, I can't even explain it to you guys. It is really, it's a really magical experience. I don't know how else to explain it to you guys, but I would definitely recommend seeing the fireworks last day, last thing you do in the parks. Just trust me, take my word for it. And I also have written down, take time to see the characters throughout the days. I know a lot of you guys probably don't want to see the characters, but who doesn't want to meet Mickey Mouse? Gosh darn it. Meeting Mickey Mouse is one of the greatest things you can do at the parks. Also the other characters too. I'm not going to leave them out. You can see other characters if you want, but definitely dedicate some time to seeing the characters, because it really just rounds off the whole Disney experience. Meeting Peter Pan last year when we went was one of the greatest things I've ever done, because we've mentioned this before. When you meet the characters at Disneyland, they are those characters. They embody the personality that those characters have. And I believe that's it for my sort of weekly itinerary. Alex, did you have any other things from your itinerary that you wanted to mention?
Oh, of course, I got the whole itinerary.
Okay, actually,
Let's
let me mention a couple more things first. One of the things I forgot to mention is to sort of follow a loose structure of a plan, not really like clipboard, we need this, and right after that it's this. You don't want to be too strict while you're at Disneyland. Just follow like a loose structure, write down on your phone, sort of like a basic outline of what you guys want to do. You know, like the big attractions you want to hit during the day, and then sort of like have your whole family agree on another attraction right after that. And another one Another big sort of tip is to utilize FastPass. I've seen too many people not use FastPass while they're in the parks. I don't know why. It's a really great service. It's free, unless you guys want to pay for MaxPass, which is another big what. Do I need to get MaxPass? Do I need to get MaxPass? Again, I did not have my family getting MaxPass just because they were on the low budget, sort of like as low as you can get. And my family, I don't think they really want to spend $10 a day per person for MaxPass. But then again, you can just get one family member per day, get MaxPass and have them get all the fast passes for you guys. But for me, I have my family not utilizing MaxPass. But again, that's just personal preference. You might have, your kid might want to be willing to pay for MaxPass on all those days, and you're just, yeah. Let's see. Another big tip is do not panic if you don't get to ride your favorite attraction on day one. Let's say your favorite attraction is Pirates of the Caribbean, and on the first day you're in Disneyland, it's closed for maintenance, or it's closed because they're refurbing it. Do not panic, because you have a whole 2 other days. One if you choose to stay in California Adventure the whole day on day 2, but you have 2 whole days to ride your favorite attraction, and yeah, do not panic if you don't get to ride your favorites on the first day. I'm just repeating myself, but yeah. Like I said, take time to meet the characters, and yeah, that's pretty much it for mine. Okay, sorry for interrupting you there. You can go ahead and continue on with what you were saying.
I was going to say that I agree with Matterhorn Matt completely. If you're definitely staying for like 3 days or anything like that, then you want to utilize Fast Pass service. You want to utilize your ability to get Max Pass if you want to get photographs with the characters and things like that. So it's all really good. My family is staying at the resort for 5 days, so they actually have a lot of time on their hands. And as part of my itinerary, I wrote down what parts of the parks they should visit per day, so that way they can actually get to experience everything. So, for instance, day 1, they spent the night at the Grand Californian because they arrived the night before. So in the morning, they're kind of jet lagged. They want to stay in the room and have room service, but then they end up going to the park late in the morning, like let's say maybe around 10 or 11. And they show up there, and what they should do is visit the west side of the park for that day. So basically, they're going to go on rides like Indiana Jones Adventure, Jungle Cruise, Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, everything on the west side of the park. They'll have lunch at Hungry Bear Restaurant, dinner at Blue Bayou, and then, but the first thing that they should do when they go to the west side at the beginning of their first day is go to the front of where the Golden Horseshoe is to get their fast pass for Fantasmic, because the first night, at the end of the night, they're going to watch Fantasmic. So that's what I would suggest. First thing they do, get their fast pass for Fantasmic, and then enjoy the rest of the west side of the park on their first day. And if they miss anything, don't worry, you'll have a chance to go back on another day to go over rides that you haven't been. Now, on the second day, they will visit Disneyland again. This time, they will be spending their day in the north and eastern side of the parks. So that includes Tomorrowland, Fantasyland, and Mickey's Toontown. So basically, they'll have breakfast at the Plaza Inn, which is a character breakfast. They will want to visit Star Tours, Space Mountain, Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters, Matterhorn bobsleds, of course the classic attractions such as Peter Pan's Flight, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, Pinocchio's Daring Journey, Snow White's Scary Adventures, all that stuff on the second day, because they'll get there early enough in the morning that they'll be able to spend the whole day on the north and eastern side of the parks. Now, for their third day, they will be going to DCA, Disney California Adventure. They will have breakfast first in downtown Disney at the Jazz Kitchen, but then when they go into the park, they will be focusing on visiting Cars Land and Grizzly Peak. So the first thing they do when they enter the park is they're going to get a fast pass for Radiator Springs Racers, and then they can visit the rest of Cars Land and stuff like that. And so when they visit Grizzly Peak later on that day, they're going to want to ride rides like the Grizzly River Run, also Soarin' Over the World, things like that. And so this park is, like Matterhorn Matt said, it's really like a half-day park, honestly. There's not enough to do. But nevertheless, this family will have time to actually wait in lines because this park doesn't have nearly as many rides. And they can get fast passes if they want, but it probably won't be necessary because there's really not that many rides. So anyway, that is... Oh, and one of the other first things that they should do when they get to the park is get a fast pass for World of Color. So, because the end of that night at DCA, they're going to watch World of Color. So anyway, the fourth day, they will return to Disneyland for the last time. So they will go and ride rides that they missed or want to ride rides a second time, things like that. So they have all day to do that. They'll have breakfast at Carnation Cafe, lunch at French Market, and they'll end their day watching the fireworks and also having dinner at Steakhouse 55 at the Disneyland Hotel. So that's the fourth day. And the fifth and final day, which is really more like a half day because they'll probably be heading back to the airport at the end of the night. But their fifth and final day will be them visiting DCA to go back on any rides that they have missed or wanted to ride again, such as Radiator Springs Racers. So they'll have breakfast at Storytellers Cafe, which is at the hotel. They'll have lunch at Smoke Jumpers Grill, which is in Grizzly Peak Airfield. And possibly, if they stay late enough for dinner, they'll have dinner at Carthay Circle Theater. And they won't be able to stay late enough to watch any shows. Besides, they've already seen World of Color. So anyway, their last day is spent at DCA going over all the rides that they missed. So in any case, that is their whole itinerary for the 5 days.
Swagford says, Alex really sounds like he's narrating from the Bible. That's a sort of funny comment. Yeah,
What's
guys,
that supposed to mean?
Yeah, guys, like we said, it all depends on your family, what your preferences are. Like I said, I based my itinerary on sort of what my family does. Alex sort of just broke it down into general things that you need to do each day. Of course, my family, or at least the family in my scenario, doesn't have the option to stay more than 3 days because it's just not in their budget in this fictional scenario. But I think that wraps it up. Hey there, Mountaineers. I hope you enjoyed this short excerpt from the recent podcast, and if you guys did, be sure to check in the description for the link to the full podcast so you guys can listen to it while you guys are doing laundry or taking a long drive or whatever. It doesn't matter when you listen to it, but next week will be episode 10 of Historyland, and hopefully by then we'll have hit 500 subscribers so I can finally announce these giveaway winners. Also, let me know how I can improve this series, because as many of you know, this will be in place of Historyland every other week on the week that Historyland isn't airing, and I know I word it kind of confusing sometimes, but make sure you guys go support me on Patreon, and go check out Alex the Historian's channel too, because he makes some really great content, and be sure to support him too, because without him, there would be no Matterhorn Mondays. And tune in next week for a brand new episode of Historyland, and on that note, have a great big beautiful tomorrow.